This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Thomas and James were a couple of old-timers. They spent their retirement years running a tourist boat on historic Loch Ness. Their sailboat, the Nessie II, had seen better days, but she was still a fine seaworthy craft. It was past the tourist season and Thomas and James were just about to get Nessie ready for the winter when a new customer turned up at the docks. She was a college student. Her name was Heather, and she was looking for an inexpensive boat and crew so she could do research for her master's thesis. Well, they knew they had a live one here. Well, she had lots of books and gear, probably be able to provide them with the nest egg they'd need to tide them over the winter. They'd agreed on a price, then the two old salts proceeded to help Heather load her gear aboard Nessie II. Although it was late in the season, a warm breeze gently pushed the little boat on its way out into the loch.
You wouldn't be looking for the monster now, would you?
Asked Thomas, who loved monster lore. It seems that Heather was a marine biology student searching for evidence to either prove or disprove the monster's existence. Well, James and Thomas had a field day, telling tall sea tales about boogeymen and monsters until the wee small hours of the morning. It was late at night and Heather was finally alone with her equipment. She thought, two old salts and their fishtails. So, Heather was alone on deck, playing solitaire and enjoying the still night air. The water was smooth as glass with nary a ripple, and a low fog hung over the loch. She had just started to play a new hand when something blipped. Heather glanced over at the flashing light on the sensor array. There was something in the water. She flipped a switch on the monitor. Oh, probably a sunken log, she thought. They floated up from the bottom all the time. She glanced into the still water as she flipped another switch, muting the speaker. Just then, the log broke the surface of the lake. Just as I had thought. Down below, Thomas and James slept the sleep of angels. A few minutes later, something went bleep again. Heather looked over at the sonar array. She was sure it must be one of those old codgers down below trying to put a scare into her. She'd just settled back in her seat when the array lit up like Christmas Eve. Heather leapt to the console. She switched on the fish finder. There was something on the screen, something big, and it was coming up fast. She heard a bubbling sound. She looked over at the side, and the water was foaming all round the boat, and it was starting to glow. Then there was a titanic crash. They'd hit something, or something hit them. James and Thomas were pitched from their bunks and stumbled through the darkened cabin. Nessie II was listing. She was flooding with water. They scrambled up the ladder onto the deck. Thomas hit the switch, flipping on the mast spotlights. The boat was going down. They'd hit something all right, but the boat was still anchored, the water calm, and there are no submerged rocks in the middle of Loch Ness. They found her, clinging to the mast, water swirling around her feet. "What have you done, girlie?" screamed Thomas. "What have you done to our boat?" yelled James. But she clung to the mast, white as a ghost. "Lassie, you okay?" But she just gasped and fainted on the deck. They rushed over to help her. Thomas turned to get the first aid kit. Then he froze. "Laddie, you'd better see this." Slowly, James turned round to see what Thomas meant. There was a moment of silence while it all sunk in. A bite was missing out of the boat's stern. A bite about 6 feet wide. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. And Heather's still searching Loch Ness. But now she pays attention to the old stories. And she never, ever takes the night shift.
There once was